We had a little sound difficulties, but I think we've got that taken care of now. Anyway, we're on 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and in our daily Bible reading. Appreciate you being with us. I am a minister, one of the ministers with the Lenoir City Church of Christ. A bunch of people who are trying to get back to the Bible and do things Jesus' way. 2,000 years have transpired since Jesus started this project, and human beings, well, you know how we are. We mess it up. We never get it exactly right, but we should try. We should try to figure out what Jesus wants, and we should try to do it with patience, but with resolve. So that's what we're up to here. If you'd like to contact us, come by, visit us, talk about it, please do. We'd love to talk to you about it. But we're in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, a great chapter for any number of reasons. Let's unpack it. And when I came to you, speaking, of course, of the church at Corinth, when I came to you, brethren, I did not come with superiority of speech or wisdom, proclaiming to you the testimony of God. This doesn't mean that he's some yahoo who's just throwing out words. In the context of the day, the Greek culture, which is very pervasive, the Romans adopted it. Sometimes they changed the names, but they adopted Greek culture. They're philosophers, they're rhetoricians. How you were supposed to speak correctly and convincingly was a big deal. Those amphitheaters you've seen, in addition to plays, you would just have orators who, by their skill with words, following certain patterns, people would come to listen to them. Paul said, I didn't come to you like that. He had wisdom, and he had logic, and all of that, but it was God's. The whole thing he's been talking about in chapter 1, most of it, is the contrast between God's wisdom and human wisdom. And he makes a really striking analogy. He says, the foolishness of God is wiser than the wisdom of men, and it is, but we get enamored with ourselves and what our people have to say. So Paul wants us to get away from that, and he said, I wasn't part of that. I wasn't part of what I condemned in chapter 1. I'm of Paul, I'm of Apollos, I'm of Cephas. I was just representing Jesus. And so here we go. For I determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. There he goes. I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. Corinth was a wicked city, it's a port city. Even among the Romans, Corinthians were considered to be despicable. In a play that Romans would put on sometimes, the character that was representing the most debauched person imaginable would be known as the Corinthian. Now, Paul was raised with morality and stability of Jewish culture. He'd seen things, but when he goes to Corinth, his knees are shaking. And but he went. But he went. And in that wicked city, he found some people who wanted to hear about Jesus. And that's all he wanted to do, was find people who wanted to hear about Jesus. And my message and my preaching were not in persuasive words of wisdom. There are seminars and what have you can go to if you're a salesman to find out how to get people to buy something or how you can close the deal. Well, in a sense, Paul wanted to close the deal with Jesus, but it had to be on the terms of the people who were accepting Jesus for what he was, to do what he wanted to do, not in any kind of manipulation or emotional display. But in the demonstration of the Spirit and power, he came with works of the Holy Spirit. Now, the apostles had that, and he's going to be talking about the apostolic ministry. Jesus had that. Hebrews writer in Hebrews chapter 2 shows how God was at work validating what Jesus did and what the new covenant said so that it has attestation from God. We don't keep having that. In fact, 1 Corinthians 13, we'll get into a little bit of that. We get into some of it in Ephesians 4, that it served a purpose as Jesus said it would in John 14 and in John 16, and then it would leave something behind. Let's look at that. So that your faith would not be in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. Yet we do speak wisdom. So he does. Among those who are mature, a wisdom, however, that is not of this age, nor the rulers of this age who are passing away. So he doesn't want us to think he's not wise. In the sense of the word wisdom that means anything, and that is eternal, and that is like God, he's being wise. But we speak God's wisdom in a mystery. And when we see mystery in the Greek, mysterion, it's anglicized, we always encounter it as something that was a mystery, but now because of Jesus, it's been cleared up. But we speak God's wisdom in a mystery, the hidden wisdom which God predestined before the ages to our glory, the wisdom which none of the rulers of this age has understood. For had they understood it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. I think Pilate got a little closer to it than he was comfortable with. At the end of the day, when they said, if Caesar were to find out that this man's calling himself a king, he wouldn't like that. And he caved, washed his hands as if that would do it, and had Jesus crucified. But just as it is written, things which eye has not seen and ear has not heard, and which have not entered into the heart of man, all that God has prepared for those who love him. This is the culmination of the ages here in Christianity and in Christ. It's unfolding. It's about to get to the place where it will endure on until our time, until Jesus returns. But to us, and when he's saying us here in context, he's talking about the apostolic ministry. They're at the top of the dissemination from the Holy Spirit. He gave some as apostles, Ephesians 4:11 we'll talk about, and then other things from there. They laid their hands on people. For to us, God revealed them through the Spirit. For the Spirit searches all things, even the depths of God. For who among men knows the thoughts of a man except the spirit of the man which is in him? Even so, the thoughts of God no one knows except the Spirit of God. Now, there are people who know me well. There are people I know well. People who you know well and that know you well. But nobody knows me and nobody knows you like we know ourselves. And nobody knows God like God knows himself. So Paul wants us to understand that what he is saying in his fellow apostles that comes from the Holy Spirit, who knows God perfectly. He is God. We're hearing a message from God just like that. And that's what we need to hear, unadulterated. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, so that we may know the things freely given to us by God, which things we also speak in words not taught by human wisdom, but in those taught by the Spirit. And the New American Standard puts the missing words in there that are demanded by the context, combining spiritual thoughts with spiritual words. He's telling God has thoughts, and he speaks them in words. The Spirit has given us those words from God. And so he has taken what God thinks. Think about it. Anything you speak, should be at least, though sometimes maybe not. We want somebody to know what's going on in here. And we use words to do that. It may not work the first time. So, well, in other words, hence we have a variety of ways of talking about a relatively simple mission that God has given with Jesus. And there are different ways of looking at it. They all essentially add up to the same thing. And some of us will see some of the ways better than others, but all in all, it's a message that, this is what it is. That's what God is saying. But a natural man does not accept the things of the Spirit of God. They're foolishness to him. Cannot understand them because they're spiritually appraised. If you've ever heard an atheist rant against deism in general or Christianity in particular, they laugh and they cut up and they think they found things. And look at that. That's what these people believe. Because the idea of a non-material world existing is to them foolishness. They will not accept it because it's just out of hand. That has nothing to do with anything. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, the wise Solomon pointed out something that's quite true. God has given human beings a grievous task. He has put eternity in their hearts so that they can't figure it out. If you took the whole context, they can't figure it out by themselves. Solomon tried. But what does he find out? Vanity, vanity, vanity. Under the sun, not factoring God in, you can't find what's going on. But with him, you can make sense of it. And so Paul and his fellow apostles are taking words from God from the realm you can't see except by faith, and making it look like it needs to look where it makes sense. The secularist cannot do that. It gets kind of silly at times. Here's the deal. Long ages ago, there was something that now they say was microscopic in size that exploded. And here we are. This camera's a part of that. I'm a part of that. This table's a part of that. This room's a part of that. All the animals in the world are part of that. Everything in the universe is part of that. Books are part of that. Movies are part of that. Everything came out of a poof. And they mocked the resurrection of Jesus. On a scale, how much more involved is everything than the man who died coming back to life? Well, you can think about that. But he who is spiritual appraises all things, yet he himself is appraised by no one. So if we are accurate in the way we take God's thoughts through the words that he gives us and we appraise things correctly, this is it. Because with God, we can come to definite conclusions. Scientists can only talk about what they know right now. Tomorrow they'll find something else out, and okay. We have a self-contained, here's God saying, I want you to know this about me and what I want from you. And it's right here. It's not another book going to appear someday. You're not going to go down to Books A Million and they're going to have another book of the Bible. This is it. It will be found in here. It's contained. Then he says, but who has known the mind of the Lord that we should give him counsel, instruct him, talking about something that's said back in Isaiah 40 and verse 13. But we have the mind of the Lord or Christ. So here's the thing. It's being revealed. The apostles are speaking it. It's not the wisdom of the world. It's the wisdom that's from God. It's the wisdom that knows the story and tells it truthfully. It's the story that we can take to heart. And it centers on Jesus, the mind of Christ. Paul will say in Galatians 2:20 that he's been crucified with Christ. He said, I've been crucified with Christ, and nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Well, we could go to Romans 8:29. There are all kinds of scriptures we could go to along these lines. Check it out. Whom he foreknew, God the Father, he predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. We're supposed to be like him. That's the end game for Christianity. They don't call it Christianity for nothing. So a Christianity that is building bound, pew bound, and ritual bound is not a Christianity that God has given. It is a Jesus bound, seeking to know nothing among folks except Jesus Christ and him crucified. There are ancillary things to be sure, but that is the heart of it. And it must begin there, and it must emanate from there. And we must strive in our lives to be like him and work with fellow Christians, brothers and sisters, who are also striving for that one mind that we can all agree on, and we can move forward together. That's the plan. But you know what? That demands everything we have. What Paul said, I've been crucified with Christ, and nevertheless I live. Jesus is asking people to be crucified with him. Take up my cross daily and follow me, after denying oneself. It's not just a ritual. It's not just the building you meet in. It's a life you live following as a disciple the Christ who is the Messiah. So let's get a good understanding right here, right now. This is what Christianity centers upon. We want to know Jesus, we want to understand him, and we want to be like him. That's all Paul's up to. I determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. We'll expand on that as we go along. We'll talk about it here and there along the way. But a Christianity that isn't based on the Christ, it just isn't a Christianity. It couldn't be, could it? Thank you for tuning in. If you want to share, we appreciate it. You like it, and you think this is good to sit back and look at some Bible things, think about them, consider where they go, put other things with them that belong. We did a little bit of that today. But anyway, come see us here at Lenoir City. And thank you for tuning in.